A low, trembling wind drifts across ancient river plains, stirring the scent of warm earth and distant rain. In the fading light, shadows stretch over forgotten streets, straight as arrows, silent as breath, where the echoes of a vanished people lie waiting beneath layers of time. Their world flickers back to life like an ember rekindling, precise, mysterious, and impossibly ahead of its age. Here, pride was shaped in clay, discovery whispered through trade winds, and survival flowed with the wandering rivers. This was a civilization that rose without kings, without armies, only the quiet brilliance of ordinary hands building something extraordinary. And as the past stirs, you can almost feel the warmth of their hearth fires, hear the soft murmur of markets at dusk, and see the shimmer of carnelian beads catching the sun. If you stepped into this ancient world, what would capture your attention first? The architecture, the people, the river, or the silence that holds their secrets? Share your answer in the comments. And let me know where you're listening from tonight. And if you're ready to journey deeper, gently tap like and subscribe so our path through history stays bright. Now dim your screen, let the air grow still, and step with me into the story. Long before great cities rose from the dust, the rivers themselves carried the first quiet dreams of the Indus people. Their waters moved with patient grace, drifting over sandbanks and meadows, leaving behind dark ribbons of fertile soil that glimmered in the morning light. This land spread between the wide Indus River in the west and the wandering Saraswati in the east, was not yet a place of streets or carefully laid bricks. It was a tapestry of shifting currents, early settlements, wandering herds and families who learned to read the rhythms of the earth long before they wrote any marks into clay. Imagine this: dawn arriving gently on the plains. The first warmth touches the horizon, revealing low grasslands dotted with acacia trees. A thin ribbon of smoke curls from a small hearth where a family of early farmers begins to stir. There are no grand structures here, no towering grain bins or meticulously aligned neighborhoods. Yet you can already sense the beginnings of something enduring, something that will one day ripple outward into one of humanity's first great civilizations. These early communities lived close to the riverbanks, not because they sought glory, but because the rivers sustained them. Their waters brought fish, reeds, clay, and the soft, dark soil that nourished barley, wheat, lentils, and flax. The people here moved gently with the seasons. When the river swelled with monsoon rains, they stepped back to higher ground. When it retreated, they returned to the fertile banks, planting seeds in long, patient rows. There is a calmness to their world, a steadiness carried through everyday rituals. Picture the sounds of such a morning: the quiet bleating of goats, the rhythmic tapping of a tool against stone, the rustle of woven baskets being lifted by practiced hands. The air is cool, touched with the faint scent of damp earth. Children chase each other near the water's edge, leaving small footprints that the river quickly erases. Somewhere nearby, a hunter checks his arrows, preparing to follow animal tracks through the tall grasses, while others watch over small gardens where herbs and pulses grow. If you listen closely, you might hear faint whispers of cooperation, chores shared, stories exchanged, and tasks passed gently from one generation to the next. These early settlers lived simply, but not aimlessly. Every movement, every gesture carried purpose, shaped by generations of learning and quiet adaptation. Archaeologists today call these the pre-Harappan cultures. They are the distant ancestors of the urban planners, sculptors, merchants, farmers, and thinkers who would one day build Harappa, Mohenjodaro, Lothal, Dholavira, and many other remarkable cities. But in segment 1, we return to their earliest roots, when their lives were centered not on trade networks or civic organization, but on survival, observation, and a deep understanding of their environment. These people were skilled gatherers and hunters, but more importantly, they were the first to shape a lasting relationship with the land. Over time, they learned which seeds sprouted best in the thick river silt, which animals could be domesticated, and how to build simple shelters with mud, reeds, and wooden frames. Their tools were made from stone, bone, and early copper scraps. Their pottery was handmade and baked in small hearths, decorated with simple lines and curves. Although their communities were small, life was not isolated. Paths worn by animals often became the first routes between camps, and over many generations, these routes helped link families, clans, and villages across the region. When someone sighted distant smoke on the horizon, it might have signaled the presence of another settlement. A chance to trade a pelt for grain or exchange a small clay bowl for a shard of obsidian carried from far to the west. Can you imagine walking along those early paths as evening falls? The sky turning violet, cicadas humming softly, the river murmuring in the distance. Perhaps a gentle breeze lifts the scent of wildflowers and grain. Travelers would stop to share a meal. Roasted grains, dried berries, maybe even wild honey gathered from hives tucked into old trees. Though these were humble gatherings, they laid the foundation for the communal spirit that would define the Indus civilization centuries later. Even in these early days, there was art. People shaped small figurines from clay, tiny animals, human forms, and mysterious shapes whose meanings we can only guess at. Some were toys, some perhaps symbols of hope or ritual, quietly held in the hand or placed near a hearth. In the soft glow of firelight, these creations caught the imagination, sparking stories that would be told again and again. On some evenings, when the day's work was done, families likely sat together under the open sky. With no tall buildings to block their view, the stars stretched endlessly above them. The constellations took on forms that shaped their beliefs and guided their travels. Children might have fallen asleep wrapped in woven blankets, listening to the soothing sound of elders speaking about the river's moods or the changing seasons. These bedtime stories, whispered into the night, were the seeds of a shared culture. As centuries passed, the early settlements grew steadier and more enduring. Families began to build sturdier homes with mud bricks dried in the sun. These bricks, though simple, were the first quiet promises of a future shaped by architecture and thoughtful planning. The people began storing excess grain in early pits or clay-lined baskets, which allowed their communities to grow even when seasons were harsh. Around them, the rivers continued their slow work, carving new channels, enriching floodplains, leaving behind sediments that were perfect for agriculture. The land, in its quiet generosity, offered exactly what was needed. With dependable food sources, populations slowly increased. Domestic cattle, water buffalo, sheep, and goats became essential to everyday life. They ploughed fields, provided milk, offered wool and hide, and walked alongside their caretakers in the soft mornings when the world still felt young. There was no hurry in this transformation. It unfolded gently across generations, like the gradual widening of a riverbed. And as the settlements expanded, new skills emerged. People learned to use simple kilns, to shape pots with smoother edges, to weave cloth from cotton, one of the earliest known uses of the plant. Each small advancement was shared, imitated, refined, and passed along the growing network of villages. On a warm afternoon in this ancient world, you might see a potter turning clay between their hands, smoothing the edges with careful strokes. Nearby, a child might be learning how to grind grain on a stone slab, watching as the fine powder collects in a bowl. The smell of cooking barley might drift through the air, mingling with the earthy scent of wet clay and sun-baked mud brick. And beneath all of this, beneath the farming, the building, the crafting, was the river, always the river. To the early Indus people, it was more than water. It was memory. It was direction. It was life. Every year it carried silt from the distant mountains, renewing the fields. Every season it changed shape, reminding its people to adapt with respect and humility. Some evenings, the riverbanks glowed gold as the sun dipped low. Birds glided across the surface, creating gentle ripples. Fishermen cast nets in slow arcs, their movements practiced and peaceful. The hush of dusk wrapped around the settlements, and fires flickered to life one by one. In the quiet of these early nights, perhaps someone looked out across the darkening land and imagined something more. Sturdier homes, wider fields, better tools, deeper knowledge. Without knowing it, these early dreamers stood at the threshold of one of the most remarkable transformations in human history. And yet, even as change brewed on the horizon, life in these early communities remained simple, rhythmic, and deeply connected to the natural world. There were no kings, no armies, no towering monuments, only families working together, guided by the steady pulse of the rivers. As generations passed, the settlements would grow larger. People would gather in greater numbers. Techniques would improve. Crafts would flourish. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, these early communities would take their first steps toward building cities unlike anything the world had seen before. Cities defined not by conquest, but by harmony, organization, and peaceful precision. For now, though, in segment 1, we stay with them in these gentle beginnings, in the rustle of grass beneath bare feet, in the glow of small fires against wide night skies, in the soft, steady rhythm of a civilization just beginning to breathe. And as another quiet morning approaches on the plains, the first faint shapes of change begin to form, waiting for the moment when small settlements will become the seeds of greatness, and the Indus Valley will take its first steps toward becoming a cradle of the ancient world. As the early settlements along the rivers grew steadier, a quiet shift began to take shape, so subtle that no one living through it would have recognized it as the beginning of something extraordinary. The families who once moved with the seasons now lingered longer in one place. Their homes, once temporary shelters of reeds and branches, began to take on more permanent forms. Walls thickened, hearths deepened, and a new feeling settled over these communities. The sense that they were no longer just surviving the land, but slowly shaping it. The land itself encouraged this shift. Each year, as the floodwaters receded, they left behind generous spreads of rich, dark soil. Harvests grew more dependable. Grains filled storage pits, and woven baskets overflowed with seeds for the next planting. With stability came the freedom to imagine more, and this quiet imagination was the spark that would turn humble clusters of homes into the earliest expressions of Harappan culture. Imagine walking through one of these growing villages in the warm light of early morning. The houses are still simple, but now they stand in more organized rows, as though the residents have begun to think not only of their own needs, but of how their homes relate to one another. Mud brick replaces reed walls. Courtyards appear, open spaces where families grind grain, weave cloth, and share meals. The smell of freshly baked bread mingles with the scent of clay drying in the sun. There is a sense of peaceful industry, of people working with patient purpose. A potter sits in the shade of a half-finished wall, turning a smooth lump of clay in his hands. His tools are more refined than those of his ancestors. He has learned how to control heat better in his small kiln, how to shape vessels with straighter sides and symmetrical curves. The pottery he creates is not merely practical, it carries the first artistic expressions of a culture beginning to find its identity. Simple geometric patterns, lines and waves, and gentle shapes embellish pots that hold grain, water, and oil. A child watches from nearby, fascinated by the transformation of earth into something useful and beautiful. These early artisans are among the first quiet innovators of the Indus world. Their discoveries ripple outward through the community. A new type of pottery inspires better storage. A sturdier mud brick encourages stronger homes. A well-built hearth helps produce more consistent heat, which in turn allows for more advanced firing. Progress comes not in leaps, but in soft, deliberate steps. As the settlements grow, so does the diversity of tasks. Some people become skilled in chipping stone tools, shaping blades, scrapers, and small arrowheads with sharp precision. Others learn to construct larger kilns. Still others tend animals, cultivating early herds of cattle, goats, and sheep. The presence of domesticated animals means more milk, more wool, and greater mobility for trade and travel. Trade, though still simple, begins to expand quietly. A traveller might arrive from a distant settlement carrying a small bag of reddish stone, a mineral found far from the river plains, ready to exchange it for grain or pottery. Others bring shells from coastal regions, which artisans carve into beads. These beads, polished to a soft sheen, become some of the earliest forms of personal adornment. Imagine a mother fastening a small shell bead around her child's neck, a simple gesture of love that transcends time. With growing interactions between villages, ideas start to spread more quickly. One community learns a new pottery technique from another. A group living upstream shares methods of improving irrigation channels. Over generations, these exchanges knit the region into a connected cultural landscape, planting the first seeds of a shared identity that will eventually define the Harappan world. Life remains peaceful, though, and remarkably cooperative. There is no evidence of warfare, no great walls built out of fear. Instead, structures are designed with practicality and harmony in mind. People seem to value stability, cleanliness, and the quiet order of daily work. This mindset, this instinct for balance and organization, will later become the hallmark of their great cities. As centuries pass, the villages continue to expand. They begin to resemble small towns. Houses cluster around open areas where animals rest at night. Potters, weavers, and toolmakers work in designated spaces, creating small hubs of craftsmanship. Grain storage becomes more sophisticated, with larger containers and carefully managed supplies for drought years. The rhythm of agricultural life strengthens, sowing, tending, harvesting, storing, and then preparing for the next season. At dusk, the village glows softly with small fires. Families sit together, sharing warm meals of grains, legumes, and milk. Children play games with smooth pebbles. Elders watch the stars, whispering stories passed down from generations before them. The night is peaceful, the air warm, the river humming nearby. There is no sense of rushing time, only the slow unfolding of a culture learning to trust its roots. And from these roots, change emerges again. Some settlements grow larger than others, becoming natural centers of activity. Their central courtyards expand. Specialized crafts begin to flourish more visibly. People develop new tools, early copper pieces, small blades, and shaped ornaments. Clay figurines multiply, tiny bulls, birds, and human forms, perhaps with symbolic meaning now lost to us. Over time, the residents begin to organize their homes around broader concepts. They start to consider drainage. They dig deeper wells. They experiment with new layouts for their living spaces, aligning houses in ways that make it easier for families to share resources and work together. These early forms of planning, though simple, hint at the future sophistication that will define Harappa and Mohenjodaro. Even their relationship with the river changes. Instead of simply adapting to its movements, they begin to influence the flow of water with channels and bunds. These small feats of engineering allow them to irrigate fields with greater control, increasing harvests and stabilizing food supplies. The land, once a force they merely responded to, becomes a partner in growth. As the towns develop, distances shrink in the cultural sense. You can almost imagine the slow but steady increase in travelers carrying baskets of grain, bundles of cloth, or small carved beads along dusty paths that connect village to village. These paths become the earliest arteries of a civilization still in its infancy. And as these threads weave together, a quiet transformation sweeps across the region. Clusters of settlements begin sharing similar pottery styles. Houses follow similar patterns. Ritual practices echo one another from village to village. The tools used in one place resemble those from another far away. Without ever needing a single ruler or conquering force, a cultural unity begins to emerge. Softly, naturally, through shared understanding and shared daily rhythms. This is the dawn of Harappan culture, the moment when countless small communities, shaped by rivers and seasons, begin to form the outlines of something greater than themselves. They are not yet a civilization, not yet builders of marvels, but they are learning, they are preparing. And in their quiet, steady progress, the foundations for the world's earliest cities begin to take shape. You can almost feel the shift when you picture one of these growing settlements at sunset. The air is still warm, but the light is fading. Craft workers finish their tasks. Farmers lead their animals home. Potters check the cooling of their kilns. Children's laughter fades into soft murmurs as families gather for evening meals. Fires flicker, illuminating mud brick walls that stand straighter and sturdier than ever before. These walls, these first simple bricks, carry within them the promise of the future. For from these small towns will rise Harappa, Mohenjodaro, Dholavira, Lothal, and dozens of other remarkable cities built with planning, precision, and a sense of order unparalleled in the ancient world. And so, as the night settles over these early builders, a new chapter gently stirs, one in which the first true cities of the Indus Valley Civilization will soon begin to emerge from the plains. From the steady growth of the early towns, a new kind of settlement began to rise, larger than any before, more organized than scattered villages, and shaped with a deliberateness that seemed almost instinctive. These were not accidental clusters of homes. They were the first breath of cities. And though the people building them did not yet know their names would echo across millennia, the foundations of Harappa and Mohenjodaro were quietly being laid beneath their hands. Imagine approaching one of these early cities in the soft light before sunrise. The plains stretch wide and calm, dotted with fields still heavy with dew. In the distance, a gentle haze lifts to reveal a silhouette unlike the humble villages of generations past. A rising shape of mud brick walls, straight lines, and terraces arranged with unmistakable intention. There is symmetry here, an orderliness that hints at a deeper understanding of space and community. Nothing feels random. As you draw closer, the sounds of early industry become clearer. A rhythmic tapping of stone tools, the soft chatter of families preparing the day's work, the faint murmur of animals being fed. A scent of warm earth mixes with the fragrance of cooking grains. Already the calm, steady pulse of city life is beginning to unfold. These emerging cities were not built all at once. They grew slowly, shaped by countless hands over generations. Yet each step forward seemed guided by a shared vision, one rooted in practicality, cooperation, and quiet innovation. What distinguished Harappa and Mohenjodaro from smaller towns was not grandeur or monuments, but precision. Take a moment to picture the layout. Long, straight streets running north to south, intersected by others running east to west. The alignment is so deliberate that modern archaeologists can still trace them as clearly as if they were drawn on parchment. The streets are wide enough for carts, the lanes narrow but tidy. Along them stand rows of mud brick houses, their walls thick and cool, designed to soften the heat of long summers. Inside each home, rooms are arranged with direct purpose. There are areas for sleeping, storage, cooking, and often an inner courtyard where families gather for meals, conversation, or cooling rest in the evening breeze. Some houses even have staircases leading to flat roofs where people may have slept under the stars on warm nights, listening to the quiet hum of the city around them. One of the most remarkable features, the one that still inspires awe, is the drainage system. Even at this early stage, the builders of Harappa and Mohenjodaro were thinking about cleanliness and sanitation in ways few civilizations would match for thousands of years. Imagine walking along a street and noticing a covered channel running discreetly at its edge. Beneath the homes lie carefully crafted drains made of brick, sealed with gypsum plaster, angled for perfect flow. These drains connect to larger channels that run beneath the main streets, carrying wastewater far from the living quarters. Some houses have small bathing rooms with sloped floors that guide water directly into these drains. The attention to detail is extraordinary, especially given its age. And yet, none of this feels ostentatious. There are no giant temples dominating the skyline, no palaces towering above the common homes. Instead, the cityscape is marked by balance and equality. Houses vary in size, but even the larger ones remain modest, blending into the quiet fabric of the streets. At the heart of Harappa and Mohenjodaro, however, stand raised areas, what we call citadels. These elevated platforms made of mud brick serve as the centers of civic life. But unlike the fortresses or palace compounds seen in other early civilizations, they are practical rather than intimidating. On these platforms stood large public buildings, granaries, assembly halls, and storage facilities. These were places meant not for rulers, but for the community. In Mohenjodaro, the greatest marvel sits upon the citadel, a structure known today as the Great Bath. Picture it in the late afternoon glow, a rectangular pool lined with meticulously fitted bricks, sealed with waterproof plaster, surrounded by small rooms that may have been used for changing or quiet reflection. Wide steps lead gently into the water. The pool is not large by modern standards, but it radiates a certain calm dignity. The purpose of the Great Bath remains a mystery, but it is easy to imagine it as a place for ritual cleansing, community gathering, or simple contemplation. Its presence suggests a culture that valued purity, balance, and shared experience. Beyond the citadel, life in the city unfolds in steady harmony. Workshops bustle with activity, potters shaping clay vessels, bead makers turning tiny stones into jewelry, metalworkers heating copper to craft tools and ornaments. In some quarters, looms hum softly as weavers create cloth from cotton fibers. Cotton, in fact, becomes one of the hallmarks of this civilization, woven into fabric that is both strong and gentle against the skin. Markets emerge as natural gathering spaces. Picture them alive with quiet energy. Vendors offering baskets of grain, jars of clarified butter, bundles of herbs, finished pots, or small carved seals made from steatite. The seals, each etched with animals and symbols, begin to carry meaning, not only for identification, but possibly for trade and ritual. Their carvings are intricate yet serene. Humped bulls, elephants, tigers, mythical beasts, and short lines of the undeciphered script that will continue to mystify generations. Trade routes stretch outward from these cities like threads of a growing tapestry. Goods travel by cart, by riverboat, and sometimes by foot across long distances. Through these exchanges, the culture of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro spreads gently across the region. Settlements adopt similar architecture, pottery styles, and planning strategies. In this way, the Indus cultural identity continues to strengthen, not through conquest, but through shared values and mutual benefit. As the cities flourish, family life remains at the heart of everything. In the early evening, the streets glow with warmth as fires are lit within courtyards. The smells of bread, lentils, and roasted grains drift between houses. Children play small games, perhaps tossing clay balls or arranging pebbles in simple patterns. Adults talk quietly about the harvest, the weather, or the arrival of travelers from distant settlements. There is harmony in this daily rhythm, a sense of peaceful coexistence that defines the character of the Indus Valley Civilization. Even as the cities grow in complexity, their inhabitants carry with them the spirit of cooperation inherited from their village ancestors. As night deepens, a gentle calm settles over the streets. The stars reflect faintly in the cisterns and the Great Bath. A breeze drifts through the brick corridors, carrying the distant murmur of the river. The city rests. Yet under its quiet exterior, the work of countless generations continues to shape the future. For from these early cityscapes will come even more remarkable advancements: ingenious planning, flourishing crafts, expansive trade. and a cultural network stretching across the subcontinent. Harappa and Mohenjodaro are no longer simple villages. They are early masterpieces of human organization and engineering, built not for rulers but for communities. And as these cities rise with quiet precision, they prepare the way for one of the most extraordinary achievements of ancient humanity: the seamless blending of daily life with sophisticated urban design. In these moments, these calm, early centuries of urban growth, the Indus Valley Civilization stands poised at the threshold of its golden age. As Harappa and Mohenjodaro grew from thriving towns into true cities, their character revealed itself most clearly not through towering monuments or extravagant structures, but through the quiet, deliberate organization of every street, every home, every brick laid with mindful intention. The people of the Indus Valley seemed to shape their cities the way a potter shapes clay, patiently, symmetrically, and with a deep respect for balance. Imagine rising at dawn and stepping out into one of these cities. The sky is still pale, the air touched with coolness before the day's warmth begins to gather. The first sounds of morning, footsteps, low conversation, the soft rumble of a cart, echo along streets that run straight and true, stretching in perfect lines toward the horizon. These are not meandering paths shaped by chance. They are measured, aligned with a precision uncommon in the ancient world. The streets follow a thoughtful grid pattern, with main avenues broad and well-maintained, and narrower lanes branching from them like calm tributaries. Such careful planning suggests a deep communal understanding, an agreement that the shape of a city influences the shape of life within it. The people who lived here must have valued order not as a rigid constraint, but as a form of harmony. Walk along one of these main streets, and you might notice how clean it feels underfoot. Dust is inevitable, yet there is little clutter. Even waste is handled with grace. Along the edges of the road run covered drains, brick-lined channels sealed with stone slabs, guiding water and waste away from the homes. Openings are placed at regular intervals for cleaning, showing that the system was not only built with care, but also maintained by people who understood its importance. Such sanitation was unmatched in much of the ancient world. While other early civilizations built grand temples or raised monumental statues, the Indus people focused on infrastructure that made daily life more comfortable for everyone. Their belief in communal well-being can be felt in every detail. Look down a small side lane. It is narrow but organized, its walls rising in straight lines on either side. Many houses here are built of standardized mud bricks, each one carefully measured so they fit together neatly. Standardization suggests cooperation, a shared idea of how things should be built, and perhaps a system of skilled workers producing bricks for the entire community. Step inside one of the homes. The threshold is simple, but the interior reveals quiet sophistication. Rooms are arranged thoughtfully around a central courtyard, where light filters down softly, warming the packed earth floor. The courtyard serves many purposes: a place for cooking, for drying laundry, for conversation, for children to play under the open sky. Many houses include a designated bathing area, a small private space with a sloped floor leading to a drain. Such attention to personal hygiene is rare in the ancient world, yet here it appears almost universal. Some homes even have their own wells, opening through the courtyard like small windows into the water-filled earth below. These wells are so well built that some still hold water thousands of years later, Picture a woman drawing water from one of these private wells at sunrise, her pot balanced gracefully on her hip. In the next home, a man sweeps the courtyard floor, pushing dust gently toward the street drains. Nearby, a child fills small clay cups with grains to feed a tame goat waiting by the doorway. The routines are simple, yet they unfold within a structure that makes them smooth, natural, and dignified. Beyond the homes, the public structures rise with similar precision. Granaries, with their massive platforms and ventilated chambers, stand as quiet guardians of food security. Their construction reflects a deep understanding of airflow, moisture control, and communal storage, a thoughtful system designed not just for survival, but for stability over long periods. Workshops also take their place within the city's fabric. Here, artisans craft pottery, beads, tools, and textiles with measured discipline. These workshops often stand near residential areas, but remain distinct enough to keep the louder tasks away from the quiet hearts of family life. This thoughtful separation of living and working spaces shows a level of urban planning centuries ahead of its time. As the sun climbs higher, the streets fill with movement. Traders lead carts laden with grain, pottery, or woven cloth. Children in small groups walk to meet friends or gather near shaded courtyards. Women carry baskets filled with herbs, river reeds, or the day's first harvest. Despite the city's size, there is no sense of chaos. Everything flows with an unhurried rhythm, a calm pulse that seems to echo the steady rivers nearby. At intersections, you might pause to notice something else remarkable. The streets are designed to catch the wind. Their orientation allows breezes to move freely, cooling the city even on the warmest days. This natural ventilation hints at a deep understanding of wind patterns and climate, and perhaps an early attempt at environmental adaptation woven seamlessly into urban design. The neighborhoods themselves appear well integrated. There is no evidence of sharp divisions between wealthy and poor districts. Larger houses exist, but even they follow the same structural logic as the simpler ones. This suggests a society with relatively balanced social roles, where status did not dictate the shape or comfort of one's home. Instead, community needs seem to have guided the city's growth. As afternoon light softens, the streets begin to glow with gentle warmth. People take advantage of the cooler hours to run errands, gather at communal spaces, or sit in doorways sharing stories. It is here, in these gatherings, that the character of the city truly emerges, a blend of cooperation, routine, and shared responsibility. Listen to the soft conversations, discussions about the next harvest, news from traveling merchants, questions about a neighbor's new kiln, or simple exchanges about the day's tasks. The tone is peaceful. There is no sense of hierarchy dominating civic life, only the steady murmur of a community living in balance. As the sun sets, the shadows stretch long across the straight streets, turning them into quiet avenues of amber light. Families return to their courtyards. Fires flicker to life. The scent of cooking grains and fresh bread fills the air again, mingling with the earthy fragrance of warm bricks. The same drains that served the city throughout the day now carry away water from evening baths and cooking, keeping the streets cleaner than many cities built thousands of years later. Night deepens. The grid-like pattern of the city glows softly with firelight. On rooftops, people rest under the stars, enjoying the cool night air. Some hum quiet melodies, songs passed down across generations. Others watch the horizon, where the distant river glints faintly like a silver thread. And in the deep silence of the city, you can almost sense the heartbeat of a civilization that values harmony over grandeur, clean living over conquest, cooperation over chaos. This is how Harappa and Mohenjodaro grow, not through force or power, but through thoughtful design and shared vision. They are places where architecture serves life rather than overshadowing it, where every brick supports a community, every street guides movement with grace, and every drain reflects a commitment to dignity and well-being. And so, the straight streets lead us onward, deeper into the remarkable world of the Indus Valley, toward the artisans who bring clay and stone to life, whose craft shapes not only objects, but the cultural soul of the civilization itself. With the city shaped so carefully along straight streets and flowing drains, life in the Indus Valley began to radiate with a quiet artistry, one woven not through monuments or dramatic sculptures, but through the steady hands of thousands of artisans whose daily work helped define the soul of the civilization. Their craft filled every home, every market stall, every corner of Harappa and Mohenjodaro. In their clay, stone, metals, and beads, the gentle heartbeat of the Indus world can still be felt today. Imagine stepping into one of the artisan quarters as the morning sun softens the rooftops. A subtle warmth settles on the packed earth floors, and the soft ticking of tools tapping stone fills the air. Here, the city awakens not in noise and urgency, but in small, practiced movements. Hands shaping clay, fingers threading beads, craftsmen and women quietly beginning the day's work. The first craft you might see is pottery. It sits at the centre of Indus life, essential for cooking, storing grain, holding water, and even serving as tokens of trade. In a shaded courtyard, a potter kneels beside a turning dish, guiding wet clay with steady, patient fingers. The wheel, simple but effective, spins slowly beneath her hands. Clay rises into tall jars, shallow bowls, graceful cups. The potter's movements are calm, almost meditative, and the air smells faintly of wet earth. The pots themselves reveal much about the people who shape them. Some are plain and practical, meant for heavy use. Others show delicate painted patterns, thin black lines curving like river reeds, or small geometric shapes arranged in rhythmic sequences. Nothing is overly ornate. The beauty lies in quiet symmetry, in the subtle lines that give each piece a sense of calm balance. Once shaped, the pots dry in the sun, their surfaces warming to soft shades of red and brown. Later, they are placed carefully inside kilns, where heat transforms them from fragile clay into vessels that will last for years. The glow of the kiln, barely visible except at night, casts a warm orange hue against the walls. In the distance, the faint crackle of fire blends with the murmurs of workers preparing new batches of clay. Move farther into the workshop area, and you find another world of craft, one dominated by tiny, dazzling beads. The bead makers of the Indus Valley were among the finest in the ancient world, working with carnelian, agate, shell, copper, steatite, and occasionally even precious stones carried from distant lands. Picture a craftsman seated on a woven mat, turning a small piece of carnelian in his hand. The stone, deep orange and semi-translucent, catches the sun with a gentle glow. With remarkable focus, he drills a hole through its centre using a fine copper tool. The work is slow, meticulous. Mistakes crumble the stone. Skill creates beauty. Around him lie hundreds of finished beads, tiny, polished, perfectly shaped. When strung together, they become necklaces, bracelets, or belts worn by people across the region. Nearby, another artisan shapes beads from steatite. These are softer and easier to carve. Once shaped, they are placed in a special kiln and fired until they harden into gleaming white ornaments. Their smooth surfaces feel cool to the touch, almost like polished bone, yet they carry a warmth of craftsmanship that makes each one unique. As you move through the quarter, the faint metallic ringing of copper tools catches your ear. Early metalworkers are busy shaping copper into blades, axes, fishhooks, and small decorative pieces. Their furnaces are modest, simple clay structures fed with charcoal, but within them the fire burns bright. The air here is warmer, tinged with the scent of hot metal and smoke. Sparks sometimes leap when a craftsman hammers a newly heated tool on a stone anvil, shaping it with practiced strikes. The metalworkers also create small ornaments, thin bangles, pins, and occasionally tiny figurines. Copper may not hold the same gleam as gold or the strength of iron, but in the hands of these artisans, it becomes a versatile and reliable material, essential for farming, hunting, and daily life. Another sound soon joins the chorus of tools and shaping hands, the soft scratching of carving. Here sit the seal makers, arguably the most iconic artisans of the Indus Valley. They carve small square seals from steatite, pressing fine patterns into the stone. These seals are like miniature windows into the past, their images familiar yet still mysterious to us. Come closer. Watch one artisan lean over a small block of stone. With absolute concentration, he etches the graceful curve of a bull, the humped zebu, a sacred and powerful animal in the region. The bull stands tall, its horns sweeping upward like crescents. Beneath the animal, the craftsman scratches a line of symbols, an undeciphered script that may mark ownership, represent a name, or serve a ritual purpose. The symbols are beautiful in their precision, small, straight strokes, gentle curves, and geometric shapes arranged with meticulous care. Another seal shows a rhinoceros, another, an elephant, another, a tiger mid-stride. Some seals depict fantastical creatures, hybrids of animals that may symbolize myths or spiritual beliefs long forgotten. Their artistry is never loud or dramatic. Instead, it expresses confidence, balance, and a deep connection to nature. When finished, the seal is baked and then pressed gently into wet clay, leaving behind a clear imprint. These impressions may have marked trade goods, sealed jars, or identified merchants traveling across long distances. Each seal, small as it is, carries the weight of identity and trust. Continue deeper into the artisan district, and you find the weavers. Their looms stand in shaded rooms, wooden frames stretched with cotton threads. The soft, rhythmic tapping of their work fills the space like a heartbeat. Cotton, grown in the surrounding fields, is cleaned and spun into fine strands. The threads are smooth, light, and durable, qualities that made Indus textiles valued across regions. The weaver's patterns are subtle, stripes, checks, soft variations of colour achieved through natural dyes. The fabric they produce might become clothing, blankets, or wraps used in daily living. Imagine families draped in breathable cotton garments as they work in fields or walk through warm evening streets. The rough, heavy fabrics common in other regions are absent here. The Indus people choose lightness and comfort suited to their climate. Near the edge of the district sits a quieter workshop, the one belonging to figurine makers. Their creations are small, tiny clay models of bulls, carts, birds, and occasionally human figures. These figurines often feel tender and playful, perhaps toys for children or objects used in simple rituals. A potter might shape a small bull with exaggerated horns and a broad chest. A mother might purchase a tiny clay bird for her child, placing it gently into their hands. Some human figurines have intricate hairstyles or jewelry, suggesting these may have represented ideals of beauty or fertility. As the day continues, the artisan quarter never grows loud. Instead, it hums with gentle constancy. The artisans do not rush. They work with the logic of generations, craft refined slowly, shared through families, improved with each passing year. By late afternoon, the shadows lengthen and the light softens. Workshops begin to wind down. Tools are cleaned, clay scraps gathered, and kilns checked. Bead makers stretch their hands after hours of delicate work. Metal workers let their furnaces cool. Seal makers place their finished carvings in small baskets lined with woven fibre. As the sun sets, families gather for meals. The day's creations sit cooling or drying in corners of workshops and courtyards. The city, though full of industry, rests once more in calm dignity. The artisans of the Indus Valley are not remembered by name, but their work lives on in thousands of surviving pieces. Pottery, beads, seals, metal tools, figurines, each one a quiet testament to steady hands and patient hearts. Their artistry shaped not only the objects of daily life, but also the cultural identity of their civilization. And as night settles upon the city, the soft glow of hearth fires flickers across the clay walls, illuminating shelves of drying pots and baskets of beads. Tomorrow, the artisans will begin again, continuing the work that gives life its texture and meaning. The craft of the Indus world carries us onward now, toward the markets, the caravans, and the distant lands connected by trade, where the goods shaped here travel far beyond the rivers that nurtured them. As the artisans worked with clay, stone, metal, and cotton, shaping the soul of Harappa and Mohenjodaro, another quiet miracle blossomed across the Indus Valley. The rise of trade networks that stretched like soft threads across vast landscapes. From desert paths to winding rivers, from coastal marshes to distant mountain passes. The goods crafted in humble workshops began to travel farther than any single person might ever see. And with each exchange, the Indus world grew not only wealthier in material goods, but richer in ideas, connections, and shared understanding. Imagine the first light of day settling over a bustling market square. The air is cool, touched by the gentle breeze coming off the river. Merchants are already stirring, organising baskets of goods woven from reeds, adjusting wooden carts laden with pottery or grain, and feeding oxen who will help carry heavy loads. The marketplace hums with a quiet energy, not rushed, but purposeful. This is the heartbeat of a civilization connected to lands far beyond its own. The market's layout echoes the city's orderliness. Stalls are arranged neatly along the main streets, leaving wide paths for carts and pedestrians. The ground beneath your feet feels firm and smooth, pressed flat by generations of traders moving in and out day after day. The scent of fresh grain, warm bread, drying fish, and earthy pottery mingles with the gentle aroma of incense carried from a distant stall. Come closer, and you can see the rich diversity of goods filling this space. Here, a basket overflows with plump barley grains. There, rows of ceramic pots, tall storage jars, small drinking bowls, painted vessels, sit in the morning sun. Nearby, strings of carnelian beads shimmer softly, catching the light like embers from a sleeping fire. They glow in shades of burnt orange, deep red, and honeyed brown, each bead polished to perfection. A trader lifts one carefully. He explains that the stone comes from the valleys near modern-day Gujarat, where skilled artisans know exactly how to cut and heat the stones to bring out their richest colours. These beads will travel many miles, some to nearby towns, others perhaps all the way to distant Mesopotamia, where they are treasured as symbols of beauty and status. The Indus people traded not only across land, but along the broad, winding rivers that connect the plains. Step a little closer to the water's edge, and you might see a wooden boat tied gently to the dock. Its hull is simple but sturdy, made from planks sealed with resin. Riverboats like this travelled between cities: Harappa, Mohenjodaro, Lothal, Dholavira, Kalibangan, carrying everything from clay vessels to cotton fabrics, from polished stones to dried fish. Listen to the soft splash of oars dipping into the morning water. The river moves slowly, yet steadily, guiding the boat toward distant settlements. Along the banks, farmers wash tools in the shallow pools, their reflections rippling as they work. Children wave from the shore, watching the traders disappear around a bend. These rivers were the natural highways of the ancient world. Long before roads were carved into the earth, long before animals pulled heavy carts across great distances, the rivers carried goods, stories, and ideas from one end of the Indus Valley to the other. Yet the traders of this civilization were not limited to river routes. Overland caravans played an equally important role. Picture a caravan preparing for travel at the edge of the city. Several oxen stand patiently, their broad backs draped with woven bags filled with goods. Traders gather baskets of grain, pots sealed with resin to prevent cracking, bundles of cotton cloth, and strings of beads wrapped in protective leaves. They follow trails worn smooth by years of footsteps, paths that cross deserts, skirt mountains, and traverse fertile plains. These routes connect the Indus cities with distant regions: the Iranian plateau, the Arabian peninsula, the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia. The journey is long, but the traders walk with quiet confidence. Along the way, they camp in small clusters, tending to their animals, preparing meals over simple fires, and sharing stories under the vast night sky. The air smells of warm dust, dry grass, and distant rain. The stars above guide them, just as they guided their ancestors. One of the most important destinations for these journeys is the ancient region of Mesopotamia. Archaeological findings reveal that Indus seals, beads, and pottery have been discovered in cities like Lagash, and Sumer. Imagine a Mesopotamian merchant examining an Indus seal for the first time, tracing the intricate carvings of a majestic bull, turning the small square of stone in his hands, curious about the mysterious symbols etched beneath the animal. These symbols, undeciphered to us even today, must have carried meaning across great distances. In exchange, the Indus people received goods rarely found in their own lands: lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, silver from the Iranian plateau, tin from distant mountains, and perhaps even woolen textiles that differ from their cotton garments. The arrival of such goods sparks curiosity among local artisans and traders, who examine them closely and incorporate new ideas into their craft. Trade also reaches the western shores of the subcontinent. At Lothal, a thriving port city built near the salt marshes of Gujarat, stands one of the earliest known dockyards in the world. Picture it now. A rectangular basin lined with bricks, connected to a channel leading out to the sea. Small boats float gently within the basin, tugged softly by the tides. The air here smells different, saltier, tinged with the scent of seaweed and warm coastal winds. The people of Lothal are skilled in maritime trade. Their ships travel along the Arabian Sea, reaching as far as Oman, Bahrain, and the edges of the Persian Gulf. These voyages carry cotton cloth, beads, pottery, and perhaps even small amounts of grain or oil. Imagine watching as a vessel is prepared for departure. Workers load baskets of carnelian beads, careful not to spill any. Large jars of fresh water are secured on board, along with coils of rope and bundles of spare cloth. The ship's wooden mast rises tall, catching the early breeze. Traders step on board, exchanging calm farewells with their families. As the tide shifts, the vessel drifts slowly toward open water, where the horizon stretches endlessly, a shimmering blue path to distant markets. Back in the heart of the Indus cities, trade transforms everyday life. Markets flourish not only with local goods, but with objects from across regions. Shiny shells from distant shores, beads of unusual colors, stones from high mountains, and the occasional object of foreign craftsmanship. These items spark stories, prompting questions about faraway lands. Can you imagine a child holding a shell that once rested in the deep waters of the Arabian Sea? To them, it might seem magical, an object born of a world beyond their own. Or think of a potter admiring a stone tool brought from Afghanistan, marveling at its polish and density. These small moments reveal the quiet emotions woven into trade: the wonder, the curiosity, the expansion of horizons. Trade also strengthens the social fabric. Merchants returning from long journeys share stories of landscapes with tall mountains, deserts shimmering under the sun, and cities shaped differently from their own. These tales carry inspiration, enriching the shared imagination of the community. As day turns to evening in the marketplace, the bustle softens. Merchants pack away unsold goods. The last customers select the day's necessities. The air cools, carrying the faint smell of spices and warm bread. Nearby, a seal maker closes his stall, placing a carved steer-tight seal into a small pouch. A bead maker ties her completed strings of ornaments and stores them for the next day. Fires begin to glow in homes and courtyards. People return through the wide, straight streets, carrying baskets and jars. The city settles into its nightly rhythm, steady, peaceful, secure. Yet even in the quiet of the night, the trade network remains alive. Boats drift along the river under moonlight, caravans set up camp under the stars, and traders in faraway lands examine goods carved and shaped by hands many miles away. The movement of goods becomes the movement of culture, slow, steady, and balanced, like the flow of the rivers themselves. It shapes identities, fosters cooperation, and knits the cities and villages of the Indus Valley into an interconnected world. And now the story carries us gently toward another dimension of this civilization, its inner beliefs, symbols, and rituals, whispered quietly through their art, their structures, and their mysterious script. As the markets of Harappa, Mohenjodaro, and the coastal cities quieted at dusk, and traders returned home from journeys along river and sea, another softer rhythm flowed beneath the surface of daily life. one shaped not by craft or commerce, but by meaning. The Indus Valley Civilization left behind no grand temples, no monumental statues of kings, no lengthy texts to describe their gods or rituals. And yet, woven through their seals, their figurines, their public spaces, and the objects carefully placed within their homes, is the unmistakable presence of belief. Quiet, unassuming, but deeply felt. Their spirituality seems to have lived not in towering structures, but in the small, intimate rituals of each day. Rituals carried out through gentle gestures, symbolism, and a deep reverence for nature's rhythms. Imagine walking through Mohenjodaro at twilight. The sun sinks low, casting amber light across the rooftops. Families gather in their courtyards for the evening meal. Afterward, when the air cools and the first stars appear, some light small lamps, simple earthen vessels filled with oil and cotton wicks. The soft glow spills across the walls, flickering in shadows. It is not a grand ceremony, just a quiet act that brings warmth and presence into the night. Such moments, shared across thousands of homes, might have formed the fabric of their spiritual life. Across the city, in the raised citadel area, stands the structure many consider the most important clue to their beliefs: the Great Bath. Picture it now in the stillness of early morning. The rectangular pool lies empty, its carefully fitted bricks glistening with dew. Wide steps descend gracefully into the basin, inviting but calm. The bath is surrounded by rooms, some larger, some small, perhaps used for preparation or reflection. Though its true purpose remains a mystery, it is easy to imagine people gathering here not simply to wash, but to participate in a shared ritual of cleansing. The water, symbolic in many ancient cultures, might have represented purity, renewal, or spiritual rebirth. And unlike the restricted sanctuaries of other civilizations, the Great Bath feels communal, open, dignified, created not for elites, but for all. Far below the citadel, artisans carve images that may hold equally deep meaning. One of the most common is the unicorn-like figure, a long-bodied animal with a single curved horn. This creature appears on countless seals, always drawn with the same careful elegance. Its exact significance is unknown, but such repetition suggests it held a powerful symbolic role. Perhaps the unicorn served as a guardian, a totem, or a representation of a clan or lineage. Then there is the majestic zebu bull, its hump raised high, its stance strong and steady. Many believe this animal symbolized strength, fertility, or authority. Its presence on seals, pottery, and figurines suggests a deep reverence for cattle, a reverence still echoed in parts of South Asia today. Some seals go beyond animals, portraying figures seated in positions of meditation or ritual. One of the most intriguing depicts a person, possibly male, sitting cross-legged on a platform surrounded by animals on either side. Some scholars call this figure a proto-Pashupati, a lord of animals, perhaps an early symbol of a deity connected to nature and harmony. Yet we must tread gently here. These interpretations are possibilities, not certainties. Still, the calm posture of the figure evokes stillness, focus, and inner strength, qualities that might have shaped the spiritual life of the Indus people. Now picture a small clay figurine being shaped in a potter's hand. The figure is feminine, its features softly defined: broad hips, rounded belly, and intricate necklaces moulded onto its chest. These figurines, often thought to represent fertility or motherhood, appear in homes across the region. Some are decorated with elaborate hairstyles, others are simple and unadorned. Imagine one such figurine placed gently in a corner of a house. A woman might touch it lightly before beginning her daily chores, whispering a silent hope for good harvests, healthy children, or safe journeys. Again, no grand temple is required for these acts. Only intention, connection, and shared cultural memory. Other figurines depict animals: bulls, water buffalo, birds, dogs, and even tiny clay carts. Many may have served as toys for children, yet their presence also reflects the natural world that shaped the Indus identity. The people of this civilization seem to have lived in harmony with nature, not in fear of it, nor in dominance over it, but in respectful coexistence. Perhaps this is why their cities carry no evidence of kings or conquerors. Their society seems less concerned with human dominance and more with balance, the balance of nature, of community, of water and earth. This quiet equilibrium is the spirit that infuses their everyday actions. Inside a typical home, another object reveals this gentle belief system. Small altars or platforms built into niches of the wall. These spaces may have held lamps, figurines, or offerings of grain and flowers. A family might gather briefly around such a niche in the evening, placing a few drops of clarified butter or a handful of seeds as an offering to whatever forces they believed guided the world. We cannot know their prayers, but we can feel their presence in these simple acts. Rituals extend beyond the home into the larger landscape. Consider the careful orientation of their cities, aligned with the cardinal directions. This alignment may not be merely practical. It could reflect a deeper cosmic order, a desire to situate human life within the harmony of the heavens. And above all, the river itself becomes a sacred presence. Stand at the riverbank during dawn, when the world is quiet and the water flows like a ribbon of mirrored light. You can almost hear the soft murmurs of ancient prayer. A farmer hoping for gentle floods, a potter wishing for good clay, a fisherman offering thanks for a bountiful catch. The rivers, after all, are life. They nourish fields, carry goods, cleanse bodies, and anchor settlements. Their seasonal rhythms become part of the people's spiritual rhythm. In this way, spirituality is woven into daily living. It is not separate, not held in distant temples or granted only to priests. It flows through markets, homes, workshops, fields, and riverbanks. It shapes how people treat one another, how they build cities, how they approach nature. Perhaps the most profound expression of their beliefs lies in what they did not leave behind. There is no evidence of war monuments, no depictions of battles, no celebration of conquest. Instead, their art is filled with animals, balanced symbols, and meditative figures. Their cities prioritize sanitation, equal access to water, and uniform housing. Their tools are practical, their ornaments delicate, their architecture functional yet refined. Everything points toward a culture that valued order, cleanliness, cooperation, and respect for natural cycles. These values, subtle but strong, are themselves spiritual practices, lived every day, shared through generations. As night settles over Harappa and Mohenjodaro, no temple bells ring through the streets. Instead, the soft glow of oil lamps flickers in thousands of windows, each flame representing the quiet faith of a family welcoming the night. The breeze carries the scent of warm earth and cooling brick. Somewhere in the darkness, a trader returns from a long journey and places a small offering of grain in his family's altar niche. A mother tucks a clay figurine beside her child's sleeping mat. A potter washes his hands at the courtyard well, feeling renewed after the day's work. The spiritual life of the Indus Valley is not loud or commanding. It is gentle, steady, woven into actions so natural that they might go unnoticed. Yet in this gentleness lies great strength, a strength that binds communities, nurtures creativity, and guides a civilization toward harmony rather than conflict. And as we drift onward through their culture, the next part of the story brings us closer still to the people themselves, to their homes, their families, their daily comforts, and the intimate world of domestic life. As dawn slips quietly across the plains, the first rays of sunlight brush gently against the rooftops of Harappan homes. These houses, modest yet thoughtfully constructed, are where the true heartbeat of the civilization can be felt. Behind the symmetry of streets and the marvel of drainage systems lies the intimate world of everyday life. The warmth of shared meals, the comfort of familiar routines, and the quiet joys of family in a gently ordered society. Imagine stepping into a typical Harappan neighborhood, just as the sky is shifting from pale lavender to soft gold. The city is wakeful but calm. Doors open one by one, made of woven reeds or smooth wooden planks. Smoke curls lightly from small hearths nestled in interior courtyards. Children, still half sleepy, stretch their arms and smile at the promise of a new day. The houses themselves reflect a remarkable sense of balance and practicality. Most are built of uniform mud bricks, their walls thick enough to keep out the relentless heat of summer. Inside, the layout follows a familiar rhythm, a small entryway leading into a cool central courtyard. Rooms radiate from this open space: storage rooms, sleeping quarters, a kitchen area, perhaps even a small bathing space with a sloping brick floor designed to guide water neatly away. Step through one such doorway. The courtyard greets you immediately, warm and inviting. Sunlight pools quietly in its center. A few earthen pots sit arranged along the walls, storing grain, ghee, or fresh water drawn from a well cleverly built within the courtyard. The smell of the morning's first fire lingers in the air, mixing with the earthy scent of clay and the crisp freshness of a new day. A mother kneels near the hearth, preparing a simple breakfast. She grinds grains using a stone quern, her steady, circular motions leaving soft patterns in the flour. The sound is rhythmic, soothing, a sound that has echoed across generations. Soon, the scent of warm flatbread fills the air. A clay pot containing lentils gently simmers nearby, releasing an aroma that promises nourishment and comfort. In another room, perhaps shaded from the sunlight, a father organizes tools for the day. A copper blade, polished smooth, a woven basket waiting for harvested grains, a coil of rope, a small ceramic jar meant to store oil. These objects are simple, yet made with care, reflecting a life built not around abundance or extravagance, but around quiet sufficiency. Children gather near the courtyard, playing with clay toys, tiny carts, miniature animals, small figurines whose features carry echoes of the world around them. One child rolls a small ceramic ball along the ground, chasing after it with delighted laughter. Another arranges pebbles in neat lines, imitating the formal grid of the city. Childhood here flows gently, grounded in safety and community. Nearby, elderly family members sit peacefully, wrapped in soft cotton cloth. One may be mending a woven mat, another softly humming an old tune whose origins reach far into the past. Their presence is steadying, like anchors that hold the household in place. Just as in many ancient cultures, grandparents and elders were treasured sources of wisdom, memory, and continuity. The rhythm of domestic life unfolds without urgency. While other ancient civilizations may have been driven by the needs of rulers or the demands of elaborate ceremonies, the Indus people seem to have lived in harmony with the subtler cycles of nature: sunrise and sunset, planting and harvest, flood and drought. Their households reflect this stability. Step into the kitchen area and you might see jars of spices, perhaps turmeric, coriander, or mustard seed, stored neatly on low shelves. A mortar and pestle sits still from last night's use. The pottery here is practical, yet elegant, decorated with gentle lines or simple geometric motifs. The utensils remain clean, arranged deliberately, awaiting the day's work. At one side of the courtyard, a loom is set up, a simple structure of wooden beams and cotton threads. A woman sits before it, weaving with calm precision. The fabric emerging beneath her fingers is soft and breathable, perfect for the warm climate. Each thread is drawn with quiet focus, a meditative act that mirrors the society's preference for order and harmony. The well within the courtyard is a marvel in itself. The water it offers is cool and refreshing, drawn bucket by bucket with a rope made of twisted fibre. The sound of water splashing into a clay pot echoes across the courtyard, adding its gentle rhythm to the morning chorus. This water is used for drinking, cooking, bathing, and cleaning, every drop appreciated. By mid-morning, the household disperses into its daily tasks. Some adults walk to nearby fields, tending to crops of barley, wheat, millet, or cotton. Others head toward workshops where pottery, beads, textiles, or metal tools are crafted. Children may accompany parents to learn the family trade, watching closely as skilled hands demonstrate the time-honored techniques. Yet even as family members go their separate ways, the home remains central. Its structure supports both private life and social life. Neighbours visit one another easily, crossing thresholds with familiarity. They might share news from the market, offer help with repairs, or exchange small gifts, fresh grain for a piece of pottery, or cloth for a handful of spices. The homes of wealthier families differ mostly in size, not in extravagance. A larger courtyard perhaps, more storage rooms, or a second floor accessed by a simple staircase. But fundamentally, the ethos remains the same: practicality, cleanliness, and balance. Even the wealthiest households do not build towering structures or ornate monuments. The spirit of equality feels present in every brick. As midday heat settles across the city, many families retreat indoors, where the thick brick walls provide cool relief. The quiet is palpable. Children rest. Adults recline on woven mats. A clay jar filled with cool water sits near the doorway, condensation forming on its surface like beads of silver. Outside, the streets shimmer in the sunlight, but inside, the home remains a sanctuary. In the late afternoon, life stirs once more. Women gather in the courtyard to prepare the evening meal. Men return from workshops or fields. Children chatter excitedly as they help with small tasks, washing vegetables, carrying water, arranging bowls for dinner. The sound of laughter floats out into the street, mixing with the gentle roll of carts and the distant calls of merchants closing their stalls. Evening meals are warm and comforting: flatbread, lentils, maybe rice or fish depending on the region. Families sit in a circle, sharing food, stories, and the small triumphs and frustrations of the day. Conversation flows easily. Talk of the weather, the success of a new bead design, news from travelling merchants. After dinner, the courtyard transforms again. Someone lights a small oil lamp, placing it safely within a recessed niche. Its flame flickers softly, casting golden light across the walls. Children listen to stories, tales of animals, river spirits, ancestral heroes, told in voices that lull them gently towards sleep. Up on the flat rooftops, many families gather under the stars. The night air is cool and soothing. A light breeze rustles the edges of cotton garments. People sit side by side, pointing out constellations whose names may have been lost to us, but were once familiar guides in the dark. From this rooftop view, the entire city seems to breathe. Small lights flicker from home to home. The grid of streets lies quiet and orderly. The distant hum of the river carries its soothing whisper. And above, the sky stretches infinitely, mirrored in the calm hearts of the people below. At last, families return inside. Mats are unrolled, pottery lamps are extinguished. The sounds of the household soften until only the cricket song and the faint rush of the river remain. In this tranquility, one feels the deepest truth of the Indus Valley Civilization, that its greatness lay not in monuments, but in the simple, peaceful rhythms of daily life, lived with dignity, care, and quiet joy. And so, from the warmth of these homes and courtyards, we drift gently into the next chapter of their world, toward the open fields, the farmers, and the steady cycles of agriculture that sustained the civilization for centuries. Morning settles softly over the Indus plains, spreading a warm, golden glow across the fields that stretch endlessly around Harappa, Mohenjodaro, and the many towns that dot the region. Long before the streets fill with the hum of workshops or the rhythm of markets, the fields come alive with their own quiet music. This is the world of the farmers, the steady hands and patient hearts whose labour nourishes the entire civilization. Step outside the city gates in the soft early light. The air is cool, touched with the faint scent of damp earth. A gentle mist clings to the ground, rising in thin curls that drift upward as the sun grows stronger. In the distance, farmers move slowly across their plots, their figures silhouettes against the morning haze. Oxen plod calmly beside them, pulling wooden ploughs that carve shallow lines into the fertile soil. These fields follow the rhythm of rivers, the Indus, the Ravi, the Sutlej, and the now vanished Saraswati. Each year, monsoon rains swell the rivers, spreading rich silt across the plains. This natural flooding replenishes the soil, making it some of the most fertile in the ancient world. And the people, attuned to these cycles, plant their seeds with a sense of trust, shaped over generations of observing the land's gentle wisdom. Walk closer to one of these fields. The earth feels soft beneath your feet, warm in some places, cool in others. Wheat and barley grow in orderly rows, their green shoots waving like delicate fingers in the breeze. Small clusters of lentils and peas dot the edges of the fields, nutritious crops that add variety to the diet. In some regions, sesame grows tall and slender, its tiny seeds destined for oil used in cooking or lamps. A farmer pauses for a moment, leaning on his wooden plough. His brow glistens with early sweat, but his expression is calm. He wipes his forehead with a cloth made of cotton woven by his family. Behind him, A pair of oxen waits patiently, flicking their tails to chase away small insects. These animals, strong, loyal, and gentle, are essential partners in the daily work of farming. Their presence has shaped life in the Indus region for as long as anyone can remember. Nearby, another farmer kneels in the soil, checking the moisture around the roots of young plants. He digs a small trench with a copper tool, ensuring that the irrigation channels carved from the river's edge are flowing properly. These channels are simple but effective. Narrow pathways that guide water gently through the fields, allowing crops to thrive even when the monsoon rains are light. The people of the Indus Valley mastered this balance, working with nature, not against it, coaxing abundance from the land without overwhelming it. As the sun climbs higher, the fields grow busier. Women join the men, carrying woven baskets and clay pots filled with water. Some tend to the vegetable gardens near the outskirts of the fields, gardens that burst with gourds, melons, cucumbers, and herbs. Their hands move with practiced ease, pinching off leaves, checking for pests, and ensuring the soil stays moist. These gardens bring colour and flavour to daily meals and offer small delights amid the steady rhythm of work. Children play nearby, collecting smooth stones or running barefoot along the soft banks of irrigation channels. They mimic the movements of their parents, bending to pick imaginary crops or leading small wooden toy animals along the ground. Their laughter rises into the warm air, adding a sense of life and joy to the fields. Beyond the crops, herds graze peacefully. Cattle, sheep, goats, and water buffalo move slowly across the pastureland. Their bells sound like gentle chimes in the distance. The herders, often young adults or older children, walk alongside the animals, guiding them with calm gestures. These herds are more than a food source. They are the pulse of the agricultural economy. Cattle help plough fields, sheep offer wool, goats provide milk, and buffalo pull carts loaded with grain or clay jars. In many ways, the farmer's world is woven from cycles rather than moments. Seasons blend into one another with predictable harmony. In winter, wheat and barley flourish in the cool air, their growth steady and confident. In spring, fields turn green and gold, the air filled with the rustle of ripening crops. Summer brings warmth, and with it, work shifts to irrigation, ensuring the plants receive enough water. Then come the monsoons, drenching the plains in heavy rains, replenishing the soil, and signalling the time to prepare for the next planting. Throughout these cycles, the farmers work steadily, their connection to the land both practical and spiritual. They understand the river's moods, the dance of clouds, the feel of soil between their fingers. They know when the monsoon will be generous, when the air will be dry, when the winds will blow from the sea. Midday arrives, and the heat settles across the fields like a warm blanket. Tools are set aside, and families seek shade beneath the broad leaves of trees or in small shelters built along the farmland. Meals are simple: flatbread, lentils seasoned with herbs, fresh milk, maybe cucumbers or melons cooled in the morning water. These moments of rest feel soft and unhurried, as though time itself pauses to breathe. As afternoon stretches onward, the farmers return to their work. They check the irrigation channels again, clear weeds, and tie reeds along the edges of fields to mark the boundaries. The sun begins to descend, painting the sky with hues of gold and rose. The fields glow, their surfaces shimmering like woven fabric. From a distance, the scene looks almost like a vast tapestry. threads of green and brown stitched together by the hands of thousands. As the day draws to a close, the farmers gather their tools and begin the walk back toward the city. Oxen plod beside them, their shadows long in the fading light. Children skip along the path, tired but joyful, and behind them the fields rest, quietly absorbing the last warmth of the day. In the evening, families return home with their baskets of produce. Dinner is prepared, lentils simmered with spices, warm bread fresh from the fire, maybe a dish of roasted barley or stewed vegetables. The flavors are simple yet comforting, the essence of a life lived close to the land. After the meal, the family sits together in the courtyard. The air cools, and fireflies flicker softly in the twilight. Stories drift through the air, tales of ancestors, of good harvests and difficult seasons, of monsoons that arrived early or rivers that shifted course. These stories carry wisdom, reminding each generation how to care for the land and read the signs of nature. Later still, as the city settles into quiet, the farmers step onto their rooftops. From there, they can see the fields stretching into the darkness, glowing faintly under the moonlight. The river glimmers like a silver thread. The wind carries the scent of damp soil and fresh leaves, promises of tomorrow's work, tomorrow's harvest. In this gentle world, farming is not merely survival, it is connection between land and people, between seasons and stories, between the cycles of nature and the rhythms of family. The soil gives life, and in return, the people give care. This bond, steady and respectful, becomes one of the greatest strengths of the Indus Valley Civilization. And now, from the quiet fields and rippling riverbanks, our story flows toward another mystery. One carved not in clay pots or grain fields, but in tiny, undeciphered symbols carefully etched onto seals. Evening descends quietly over the plains of the Indus Valley. The fields settle into soft silence, and lamps glow in the courtyards of Harappa and Mohenjodaro. As families gather for the night, a world of symbols, small, precise, and full of meaning, rests in the shadows of their workshops and market stalls. These symbols, carved onto tiny seals and etched into pottery, form the mysterious Indus script, a writing system that whispers across thousands of years without ever revealing its full voice. Imagine entering a sealmaker's workshop at dusk. The last rays of sunlight filter through the doorway, illuminating shelves of steatite blocks, smooth, pale stones waiting to be shaped. The artisan sits with focused stillness, carving minute lines into the surface of a small square seal. Each line is deliberate, each curve has meaning. And yet, to our modern eyes, the message remains a secret. The script appears across the entire region, on carved seals, pottery shards, copper tablets, ivory sticks, and even weights, but never in long texts. The inscriptions are brief, usually just a few characters, each one elegant and balanced. The signs include geometric shapes, crescents, tridents, fish-like forms, strokes curved like reeds, and symbols that resemble birds or gates. Together, they form one of the earliest writing systems of the ancient world. Now imagine holding one of these seals in your hand. It is small enough to fit in your palm, yet it carries the weight of a civilization's identity. On one side, there is an animal, a unicorn-like figure or a powerful bull, carved in fine detail. Beneath it, a row of symbols flows like a delicate pattern of reeds swaying in water. What do they say? The seal maker would have known. The merchant who used it would have understood its meaning. But the message, whispered between them, has remained locked away for over 4,000 years. Step outside the workshop and walk through the evening streets. Many houses contain objects marked with these symbols: pottery jars, storage bins, weights used for trade. The script threads itself through daily life like a quiet signature of the people who lived here. Perhaps it identified ownership, marking goods that travelled across markets or long-distance trade routes. Perhaps it represented names, professions, or clans. Or maybe it held ritual meaning, used in ceremonies or offerings we can only imagine. Yet even without knowing the exact words, we can sense the script's presence as a living part of the culture. It is too widespread, too carefully crafted, to be simply decorative. It carries consistency across the entire Indus world, from Harappa to Lothal, from Mohenjodaro to Dholavira. Such unity suggests a shared understanding, a literacy of symbols that flowed through thousands of people. Imagine now the process of carving a seal, an act that demands patience and reverence. The artisan sits cross-legged on a woven mat, the stereotype block resting gently in his hand. With a copper chisel, he etches each symbol with the same precision his ancestors taught him. He may murmur softly to himself, recalling the specific pattern demanded by his client, a merchant, a trader, or perhaps a civic official. Once finished, the seal is fired in a kiln. The heat hardens it, turning the soft stone into a durable piece ready for years of use. The final product is smooth, cool to the touch, and surprisingly elegant. When pressed into wet clay, it leaves a perfect impression, an imprint that might seal a jar of grain, validate a transaction, or mark an object bound for a distant land. Picture a merchant standing at a market stall. He seals the mouth of a clay jar filled with sesame oil, then presses his seal into the damp clay, leaving behind his unique symbols. Anyone who sees the seal knows exactly who the jar belongs to. The system is clear, efficient, and deeply personalized. Now imagine another scene. A traveler from Mesopotamia holds an Indus seal in his hands, turning it curiously. He cannot read the symbols, but he recognizes their importance. Goods from the Indus region often bear these marks, and he understands them as signs of authenticity, proof of origin, proof of trust. As night deepens, return to one of the homes near the center of the city. Inside, a small pottery jar sits on a low shelf, etched with a few simple characters. It might be a family mark, passed down across generations. A parent teaches a child to draw the symbols in soft clay, guiding their small fingers. The child's lines are unsteady, but the shapes are familiar, symbols they have seen on jars, seals, and tools throughout their young life. Their script may not be a full written language as we understand it today. It might not capture entire stories or long historical records, but it conveys meaning within its context, simple, efficient, and universal across the civilization. And that, in many ways, is its beauty. Walk a little farther, and you might find a clay tablet with just a few characters pressed into it. No long scrolls, no grand inscriptions, no royal proclamations carved into stone. The Indus people seem to have crafted a system suited to their needs, practical, concise, and integrated into daily life rather than elevated above it. This subtlety reflects something deeper about the civilization, a preference for balance over spectacle. Their writing system mirrors their architecture, their craft work, their social organization, quiet, functional, refined, and deeply communal. Imagine standing atop the citadel at Mohenjodaro, looking out over the darkened city. Lamps glow softly in courtyards. The air carries a hint of clay and warm earth. Somewhere below, a sealmaker finishes his last piece for the day. A trader packs his goods for a journey along the river. A child sleeps with a small clay tablet beside them, a playful imitation of the writing they see in the adult world. You look again at the horizon and think of how remarkable it is that such a vast civilization communicated through symbols that remain silent to us now. Their script is like a song whose notes we can still see on ancient parchment, yet whose melody has faded away. And in that silence is a quiet dignity, a reminder that some knowledge is held gently by time, waiting for the moment it might be understood again. Perhaps one day, a scholar will decipher these signs. Perhaps the meanings will bloom open like flowers long dormant. Or perhaps the script was never meant to be read in long, elaborate sentences. Perhaps it was simply a form of identity, trust and quiet ritual, perfectly suited to a people who valued simplicity, order, and harmony over grand declarations. For now, what remains is the beauty of the symbols themselves, tiny strokes of intention carved by skilled hands, echoing the gentle wisdom of a civilization that spoke softly through clay and stone. And from these silent voices, we drift onward, toward the heart of civic life, where cooperation and shared responsibility shape the cities as profoundly as their streets and symbols. Night settles softly over the cities of the Indus Valley, and while most households drift into sleep beneath the warm glow of pottery lamps, a small group of people remains awake, seated in quiet discussion within a shaded hall on the citadel. There are no kings here, no thrones of gold or towering statues celebrating rulers. Instead, civic life in Harappa, Mohenjodaro, Dolavera, and other Indus cities seems to have been guided by something far more subtle: cooperation, calm, steady, and shared. Archaeologists have uncovered no palaces in the Indus Valley, no great tombs, no monuments proclaiming the power of a single leader. And yet, the cities are astonishingly organized. Homes are aligned, streets are planned, drainage systems flow perfectly, and public buildings stand sturdy across centuries. Such coordination could not have existed without thoughtful leadership, leadership that worked not through domination, but through dialogue and communal responsibility. Imagine stepping into one of the administrative halls as the early morning light begins to soften the edges of the sky. A group of men and women sits around a low platform made of smooth, sun-baked brick. Their expressions are thoughtful, their gestures calm. Perhaps they are elders, skilled workers, merchants, or representatives of different neighborhoods. They gather not to impose authority, but to listen, to share information, resolve disputes, and plan for the needs of the community. The room is simple. No ornate carvings, no dramatic displays, just a handful of clay tablets, a few baskets of documents sealed with pressed clay, and small jars of water. The air smells faintly of warm earth and early fire. Outside, the city stirs quietly, unaware of the decisions that help shape its harmony. Here, they might discuss the cleaning of drains after the monsoon rains, or decide how grain will be stored for the coming months, or determine when to open certain irrigation channels to ensure equal access for farmers. These decisions, though humble, carry weight. They are the threads that keep the city woven together. As the discussion continues, imagine one elder holding a seal, perhaps marked with the symbol of their district or profession. He presses it into a clay token to record an agreement. These tokens might then be stored in the nearby building, a granary or warehouse awaiting inspection by others. The presence of seals in administrative spaces suggests a system built on accountability and transparency. Outside the hall, the city's civic life unfolds with the same calm coordination. Walk along the broad streets as morning deepens. Workers move in tidy rows, sweeping away dust with reed brooms. Near public wells, people gather to fill their clay pots with fresh water. The wells are placed strategically so no resident is far from a reliable source of clean water, a sign of thoughtful civic planning. In the workshops, artisans begin their day, shaping beads, pottery, or copper tools. Some of their wares will be used locally, others traded across the region. Their workspaces are arranged close to one another, forming clusters of specialized activity. These clusters reflect an organized understanding of city life. Artisans near the market, farmers near the fields, civic buildings on raised platforms safe from seasonal floods. Continue walking, and you might find yourself standing before a granary. Its thick walls and elevated floors designed to protect stored grain from dampness and pests. Such structures speak of communal foresight. They ensure that even in difficult years, food can be distributed fairly. The granaries are often built near the citadel, where civic councils meet, suggesting a careful balance between planning and distribution. Nearby stands an open gathering space, perhaps a marketplace or an assembly area. Here, the community meets not just for trade, but for festivals, ceremonies, and shared announcements. While the Indus people left few grand monuments, their commitment to shared space reveals a deep respect for social unity. Imagine one such gathering on a warm spring evening. Families arrive wearing soft cotton garments, their children holding clay toys or small baskets of flowers. Musicians play gentle melodies on simple flutes or drums. The air carries the scent of roasted grains, sesame oil, and fresh herbs. People share stories, exchange news, and celebrate the cycles of nature that shape their lives. In the middle of the crowd, someone from the council might step forward to address the community. Their voice is steady, calm, and clear. They speak not of conquest or royal power, but of practical matters. New wells dug, drainage channels repaired, storage capacities improved. The people listen with a sense of trust. Trust earned not by dominance, but by quiet reliability. Throughout the city, this spirit of cooperation extends into everyday interactions. Neighbours help one another repair walls or carry heavy loads. If a home floods during the monsoon, nearby families come to assist, strengthening brick foundations and raising thresholds. Community life is woven from countless acts of shared responsibility. And yet, despite this orderliness, the city remains warm and welcoming. Courtyards are filled with laughter. Rooftops glow with evening light. Children play in the streets, weaving between clusters of merchants and travellers. The social fabric feels steady, but never rigid. Move now toward the edge of the city, where workers maintain gates that guard the entrances. These are not militarized outposts. Rather, they function as checkpoints, places where visitors register their goods, share information, or secure permission to enter. The walls and gates are built not for war, but for organization and protection from natural elements. A guard might greet a trader returning from a long journey. They exchange a few words, inspect the goods, and record the arrival on a clay tablet. The seal of the trader is pressed into the clay, ensuring the record cannot be altered. Everything is done with quiet efficiency. At dusk, These same gates welcome farmers returning from the fields. Their oxen, tired from the day's work, plod slowly beside them. Children run ahead, eager to return home. The guards smile and wave, recognizing familiar faces. This is civic life, unpretentious, steady, deeply communal. As night falls again, the city glows with small lights. In the administrative hall, the last council members rise to leave. Their decisions for the day, about sanitation, distribution, repairs, or seasonal preparations, are done. They step into the warm night air, blending quietly with the rest of the community. Perhaps they walk home past the great bath, its surface reflecting the moonlight. Perhaps they pass by workshops where artisans finish their tasks, or through neighborhoods where families chat softly in their courtyards. The city feels alive, peaceful, and attentive. Above all, civic life in the Indus Valley seems guided by a sense of shared purpose, a belief that the city belongs to everyone and that harmony is maintained not by force, but by cooperation. And now, with the gates of the city behind us and the river's whisper growing closer, the story flows gently toward another essential thread of this civilization: the movement of people, goods, and ideas along the waterways that gave the Indus Valley its life. Night fades gently over the rooftops of Harappa and Mohenjodaro, and as the first pale shimmer of dawn touches the eastern sky, the rivers begin to stir. Their waters, calm and steady, have carried people, goods, and stories for countless generations. More than roads, more than pathways carved through plains and deserts, it is the rivers that connect the vast sprawl of the Indus Valley. They are the quiet lifelines of a civilization that understood the rhythms of water as intimately as the rhythms of their own breath. Imagine walking toward the riverbank in these early hours. The air is cool, filled with a soft mist that hovers just above the slow-moving water. The gentle splash of oars echoes through the silence as the first boats begin their morning journeys. Their hulls cut through the glassy surface, leaving long, rippling trails behind them. Birds glide low across the water, dipping briefly before rising again toward the growing light. Boats of the Indus Valley are simple but sturdy, crafted from wood sealed with resin and shaped to glide smoothly along the winding channels. Some are small, meant for families travelling short distances to nearby fields or villages. Others are larger, capable of carrying heavy cargo, jars of grain, bundles of cotton cloth, baskets of fresh produce, pottery, beads, or copper tools destined for distant markets. Watch as a trader steps onto one such boat. He ties his woven satchel securely, adjusts his cloak of soft cotton, and greets the boatman with a quiet nod. The boat shifts gently under his weight. Then, with an easy push away from the bank, they begin drifting downstream. The current guides them for a moment before the boatman dips his oar into the water, steering toward the wider channel that leads south toward Mohenjodaro. The river is their highway, broad, dependable, and far faster than overland travel. Along its edges, life hums in quiet harmony. Children gather along the banks to splash and play in the cool shallows. Women wash pottery and clothing in the gentle eddies, their hands moving in familiar, rhythmic patterns. Farmers lead cattle down to drink, watching as the animals' reflections waver in the shifting water. As the boat travels farther from the city, the landscape opens. Tall grasses sway in the breeze. Clusters of date palms rise at intervals along the banks. Fishermen cast nets from narrow boats, their movements smooth and practiced. The catch they bring home, fresh fish glistening in the sun, will fill the city markets by afternoon. These fishermen are masters of reading the river's moods. They know where the currents hide shoals of fish, where the deeper pools lie, and when the waters are safe to navigate. During the monsoon season, the river swells with rainwater, transforming into a broad, powerful force. But when the rains fade, its waters become gentle again, revealing new paths carved through the silt. As the morning brightens, more boats appear, some paddling upstream with strong, steady strokes, others drifting down toward the sea. Traders call out greetings to one another in passing. A boat carrying pottery from a northern settlement glides by, the jars carefully packed with straw. Another carries copper tools from workshops near the eastern hills. Farther along, you might see a boat piled with bundles of cotton thread, destined for weavers in distant towns. Occasionally, the boat must stop at a riverside settlement. People gather on simple docks, loading and unloading goods with quiet efficiency. Children run to greet traders they recognize, waving excitedly. At one such dock, a woman examines a string of polished carnelian beads offered by a passing merchant. She turns them in the sunlight, admiring the deep orange glow before making her choice. The exchange is simple, warm, and repeated thousands of times along the river's length. In these moments, you can feel how deeply intertwined each community is with the next. No settlement feels isolated. Water binds them all. Continue downriver toward the coast, and the landscape slowly shifts. The air grows saltier. The river widens until it feels almost like a lake, its currents influenced by the distant pull of tides. Here, near the ancient port of Lothal, the river meets the sea, the place where the Indus Valley reaches out toward lands far beyond its own horizon. Picture Lothal's dockyard in the full light of day. It is an ingenious structure, a rectangular basin lined with bricks, designed to hold boats securely even as tides rise and fall. Workers move along its edges, repairing wooden hulls, loading jars of grain, and preparing goods for maritime trade. The sound of hammering blends with the calls of seabirds, creating a lively, hopeful rhythm. A large boat sits in the dock, its deck stacked with goods, carved beads, cotton textiles, copper tools, and pottery sealed with resin and marked with Indus symbols. But alongside these local exports are items brought from faraway traders. Shells from coastal lands, stones from distant mountains, and perhaps even small artifacts from Mesopotamia. Watch as the boat slowly drifts away from the dock, guided by poles and oars until it reaches deeper water. The sails unfurl, catching the warm coastal breeze. The vessel tilts gently, then glides forward across the shimmering surface of the sea. It will follow the coastline, stopping at ports along Arabia, Oman, and the distant Persian Gulf. These journeys are long, but their rewards enrich the Indus cities with foreign goods and new ideas. Back upriver, life remains steady throughout the day. Boats pass one another with soft greetings. The current carries the scent of wet reeds and river mud, a smell that is earthy, familiar, and comforting. In some places the river narrows, flanked by steep banks carved by centuries of water. In others, it widens into tranquil pools where water buffalo bathe contentedly. By late afternoon, the sun begins to soften. A golden glow spreads across the water, turning its surface into rippled silk. Traders returning home sit quietly, watching the colours change. Their boats glide gently toward the city, where silhouettes of brick buildings rise against the horizon. Families gather at the riverside to meet them. Children wave excitedly from the bank. Adults help unload baskets of goods. There is pride in these moments, pride in a journey completed, in goods traded, in the connection between cities sustained. As night returns, the river reflects the soft glow of lamps from nearby homes. Its currents move like flowing shadows, whispering stories of all the travellers it has carried throughout the day. The sound of water lapping gently against the banks becomes a lullaby, steady, reassuring, timeless. And in its quiet presence, one feels the deeper truth of the Indus Valley Civilization, that water was not only their lifeline but their guide, their teacher, their path to distant worlds. It shaped their settlements, sustained their fields, connected their cities, and carried their culture far beyond the horizon. Now, from the slow-moving water and moonlit currents, our story begins to shift. For even the strongest rivers change over time. And in the centuries ahead, the very waters that once sustained the Indus Valley will begin to wander, shifting their course and bringing with them the first whispers of transformation. For countless generations, the rivers of the Indus Valley had been the steady companions of its people, reliable, nourishing, familiar. They rose with the monsoon rains, retreated in the quiet months, and left behind soil rich enough to sustain entire cities. But now, as centuries slipped quietly past, small changes began to ripple through the land. Changes so soft at first that no one living through them would have guessed they were witnessing the opening chapters of a transformation that would eventually reshape the entire civilization. The signs emerged, not with thunder or drama, but with whispers, shifts in weather, subtle fluctuations in river patterns, and gentle alterations in the cycles that had long guided life in the Indus Valley. Imagine standing along the riverbank one early morning. The air still holds the familiar scent of water and earth, but something feels different. The current seems a little weaker. The once broad channel has narrowed slightly, exposing patches of dry silt along the edges. Birds circle higher than usual, as if uncertain where to land. Fishermen, launching their boats at dawn, murmur to one another about reduced catches, just a little less each season. At first, no one worries. The rivers have always shifted. The monsoon rains have always varied. The people of the Indus Valley know how to adapt. They build new channels, adjust irrigation, and wait patiently for the cycles to correct themselves. But gradually, the changes become more pronounced. One year, the monsoon rains arrive late. The fields, already thirsty, crack in the heat. Families gather near their wells, lowering buckets deeper and deeper to reach the water. The oxen, usually strong and willing, work more slowly beneath the relentless sun. Harvests that once filled granaries now produce only modest yields. The next year, the rains return, but too forcefully. Torrents sweep across the plains, flooding fields before seeds can take root. Drainage channels strain to guide the excess water away, but even the best designed systems cannot perfectly tame nature. Homes in low-lying areas see water rise above thresholds. Families spend late nights reinforcing walls with mud and straw. Then come seasons of unusual coolness, followed by seasons of extreme heat. The wind patterns shift. The familiar breezes that once cooled the evenings arrive sporadically. Days feel heavier, the sunlight sharper. Elders begin to remark that the skies look different, that clouds drift in shapes they haven't seen before. Amid these climatic shifts, the rivers themselves begin to wander. The once mighty Saraswati, which had nurtured many eastern settlements, shrinks over generations. Local stories might have whispered that the river was moving away, or perhaps simply growing tired. Channels dry up, riverbeds crack, communities along its banks feel the loss deeply, for without the river's steady presence, their fields cannot flourish as they once did. In some places, new channels emerge, carving fresh paths through the plains. These paths do not always lead near existing towns. A settlement that once flourished at the river's edge suddenly finds itself miles from reliable water. Wells grow deeper, and the effort to draw water increases. Some families consider moving closer to the new rivers. Others stay, hoping the waters will return. Change spreads gradually across the region. Workshops produce fewer goods. Farmers work harder for smaller harvests. Trade along the rivers becomes less predictable as shifting currents and silted channels make navigation more challenging. Picture a trader standing beside his riverboat, staring at a sandbar that wasn't there the season before. The water that once flowed deep and clear has grown shallow. He tests the depth with his oar, frowning as it sinks only a short way before meeting resistance. His journey will take longer this time. He will have to stop often to lift the boat over shallow stretches. Still, he perseveres, because he must. Trade is not only his livelihood, but the thread that ties communities together. Back in the cities, subtle adjustments become part of everyday life. Water from wells tastes different, slightly more mineral, slightly warmer. Families store more grain during good years, preparing for the possibility of leaner seasons. Some neighborhoods grow quieter as residents move away, following the promise of stronger river flows or more reliable farmland. Despite these hardships, the spirit of cooperation remains strong. Councils meet more frequently. People share strategies for storing water, repairing irrigation channels, and recovering from unpredictable monsoons. They do not panic. They adapt calmly, thoughtfully, as they always have. Yet nature continues to press gently but persistently. Imagine a farmer kneeling in his field, running dry soil through his fingers. He looks toward the sky, searching for familiar signs in the clouds. Around him, the fields stretch wide, but the tender green shoots of barley are fewer than before. His oxen rest nearby, their breathing slow in the afternoon heat. In the distance, he sees dust rising from the road, a group of families traveling with carts loaded with household goods. They move steadily, making their way toward a town where the river still flows more generously. He greets them as they pass. They share soft-spoken words, hopes for better land, regrets for the homes they leave behind, and the quiet resilience that marks their way of life. Within the cities, pottery workshops notice that some of their raw clay is growing harder to source. The best clay came from riverbanks, and as those banks shift or shrink, artisans must search farther. Meanwhile, fishermen bring home fewer catches, prompting families to rely more heavily on grains and livestock. But even amid these changes, there are nights when the old harmony returns. Nights when the breeze carries the familiar smell of wet earth after a sudden rainstorm. Nights when the river swells just enough to remind everyone that cycles come and go, that even the stubborn winds of change can soften for a moment. Still, deep beneath this rhythm, the land continues to transform. Some rivers begin silting heavily. Others carve deeper channels, moving away from established cities. And with each shift, the relationship between the people and the land becomes a little more strained. But the Indus people do not abandon their way of life easily. They repair, rebuild, and reorganize, They migrate gradually, not in panic, but with purpose, moving toward places where water flows more surely, where the land still offers the promise of stability. In the evenings, families sit in their courtyards, listening to the stories their elders tell. Stories of seasons long past, of floods and droughts survived, of ancestors who adapted with grace. These stories carry hope, reminding them that every challenge is met with resilience, that nature's cycles always find balance in time. And somewhere deep within the cities, by the light of a small oil lamp, a potter continues shaping clay. A bead maker polishes carnelian. A seal maker etches another delicate symbol. The work goes on just as it has for centuries. The changes unfolding are slow, gentle and complex, too subtle for any one generation to fully understand. But these shifts, over time, will guide the civilization toward quiet transformation. And now, as the winds of change continue to blow, we step gently toward the next chapter, when the great cities themselves begin to dim, not through sudden catastrophe, but through long, soft fading. The great cities of the Indus Valley, Harappa, Mohenjodaro, Dholavira, Lothal, and countless others, had stood for centuries as havens of order, comfort, and quiet brilliance. Their straight streets, well-built homes, and flowing drains reflected the steady hearts of the people who lived within them. But now, as the rivers wandered and the monsoon winds grew unpredictable, the rhythm of city life began to shift. Not all at once, not with sudden tragedy, but with a gradual softening, like a lantern dimming as its oil runs low. Picture Mohenjo-daro in the late afternoon light. The sun glows warm against brick walls that have been touched by generations of hands. The air remains familiar, the scent of clay, the distant fragrance of simmering lentils, the sound of traders haggling gently in the market. But look a little closer, and subtle differences emerge. One doorway stands open and empty, where once a family gathered for evening meals. A courtyard, usually filled with the laughter of children, now sits silent, with leaves collecting along the edges. A potter's workshop shows signs of neglect, a wheel unmoved for days, clay hardened along the floor. None of these things draw immediate concern, for people come and go, and life is always in motion. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, such signs begin to multiply. Some families leave quietly. A farmer and his children load their belongings onto a wooden cart, leading oxen toward a settlement farther east, where the river still flows generously. A bead maker and her apprentice close their workshop, planning to join relatives in a smaller village that has sprung up near new trade paths. They do not leave in fear or despair. They leave with hope, hope for fresh water, fertile fields, and steadier seasons. As households depart, neighborhoods begin to thin. But the heart of the city continues its patient beat. Councils still meet. Markets still open. Craftspeople still work. And the river still hums nearby, though its voice has changed. In some years, the river brings too little water. In others, too much. Its temperament becomes unpredictable, carving new channels far from the familiar, leaving some wells dry and others brimming with silt. Farmers who once relied on the river's steady cycle now walk longer distances to fetch water, their clay pots heavy with the effort. Trade routes shift as well. Boats struggle along shallower channels. Caravans choose paths that bypass the cities whose rivers have faltered. Goods once abundant in the market now arrive less frequently. A merchant who once expected carnelian beads every season now receives them only sporadically, brought by traders who speak of more prosperous markets elsewhere. Inside the city, workshops fall quiet one by one. Some artisans follow the trade routes to new centres of activity. Others remain, adapting to fewer orders and smaller audiences. Their hands continue shaping clay, carving seals, weaving cloth, but the sense of bustling abundance begins to thin. Imagine walking through the workshop district at dusk. The warm light still spills from some doorways, but not as many as before. The rhythmic tapping of copper tools is softer. The familiar sweet scent of resin from boat builders' work is fainter. A few artisans sweep their thresholds, pausing to look down the empty street before returning indoors. And yet, life continues with dignity and calm. Even as families depart, those who remain hold fast to their routines. They light their oil lamps at night, cook simple meals, and sit together in courtyards telling stories under the stars. Children still play in the streets, though their games echo a little more loudly in the thinning neighborhoods. Elders still hum songs that have been passed down for generations, songs that speak of rivers, fields, and the breath of the earth. The city itself seems to sense the change, though it does not resist. Buildings age gracefully. Bricks erode softly from wind and time. Drains once bustling with flowing water now carry only thin trickles. Wells grow deeper and darker. The great bath, once filled with clear water and the gentle sounds of ritual cleansing, stands dry in some seasons, its floor cool beneath the shade. But still, the decline remains slow, gentle, respectful. There is no evidence of invasion or destruction, no burned walls, no signs of war. Instead, the city quietly loosens its hold on the people who built it. It releases them, almost as a parent releases grown children, allowing them to seek new ground, new riverbanks, new futures. Some families travel north, following fresher streams and cooler climates. Others head east toward fertile lands fed by shifting rivers. New villages sprout where water remains reliable, and these villages carry with them traces of the old cities. Brick-making techniques, pottery styles, the symbolic seals, the preference for clean streets and orderly homes. Though the civilization's center shifts, its spirit lives on. Meanwhile, the cities that remain slowly transition into quieter forms of themselves. Markets become smaller gatherings. Workshops turn into storage spaces. Homes that once rang with the sounds of daily life now rest peacefully under layers of dust. The cities become places of memory, still standing, still dignified, but with fewer footsteps in their streets. Picture Mohenjodaro at twilight in its later years. The rooftops glow in the warm light. A few families sit together, enjoying the cool evening breeze. The river's hum is faint, but still present. Birds perch on the edges of buildings, unaware of the changes unfolding. The city looks timeless from afar, its straight streets still intact, its buildings still aligned with precision. But up close, you can sense its quieter heartbeat. A potter, now older, walks slowly along the street he has known since childhood. He carries a small clay lamp, which he places gently in the corner of his courtyard. He lights it, watching the flame flicker. His children have moved to a new settlement, but he remains, holding on to the memories of the city he loves. He knows that one day he too will follow the rivers. But tonight, he sits in the familiar embrace of his home. Over the years, nature begins to reclaim the quiet corners of the cities. Wind carries fine dust that settles in layers over abandoned homes. Plants take root in shaded courtyards. Birds nest in niches once used to hold lamps or offering bowls. Rainwater pools gently in the basins of dry wells. The cities transform, but not through destruction, through a gradual return to the earth. And so, by the time centuries pass, the great cities of the Indus Valley, once vibrant, bustling, and harmoniously crafted, become silent masterpieces of clay and brick. Their walls endure, their streets remain aligned, and their secrets rest quietly beneath layers of time. Their fading is not a story of tragedy, but of transition, a peaceful passing from one chapter of human history into the next, subtle, dignified, and serene. And now, with the cities resting under the gentle weight of time, the story carries us toward the echoes they left behind. Echoes that would one day guide archaeologists to rediscover the Indus world and breathe life back into memories long buried. Time moves softly across the plains of the Indus, brushing gently over the empty streets of Mohenjodaro and Harappa, carrying with it the dust of forgotten footsteps and the whispers of long quiet homes. For centuries after the last families drifted away, seeking new water, new soil, new hope, the great cities rested beneath layers of earth and silence. No armies marched through them. No flames consumed them. Nature simply folded them into its embrace, letting them sleep. Then, long after their final lamps had dimmed, new footsteps arrived. Curious footsteps, careful footsteps. Archaeologists, explorers, scholars, and wanderers would one day bend over the quiet ruins, brushing away sand to reveal the echoes left behind. And in those echoes, the Indus Valley Civilization would rise again, not as a bustling city of artisans and traders, but as a story gently reawakened. Imagine one of these early excavations in the late 19th century. The sun casts a golden haze across the plains. A team of workers digs through layers of mud brick and silt, unsure at first what they will find. A small clay shard emerges, smooth, painted with delicate black lines. Then more shards, then bricks arranged in perfect order. The outlines of walls begin to take shape. A soft murmur travels through the group. Something ancient lies beneath their feet. As the excavation continues, the scale of the discovery becomes clear. Straight streets, deep wells, homes shaped with precision, and then the unmistakable form of the Great Bath at Mohenjodaro, its brick steps and waterproof plaster remarkably intact. Those who stand before it feel a quiet awe, sensing that this place once held profound meaning, though its rituals remain hidden in time. Nearby, a seal is found, small, crafted from steatite, bearing the image of a unicorn-like creature and a line of symbols. The seal is lifted gently, brushed clean, held to the light. Its surface glows faintly. Though silent, it speaks through its craftsmanship, hinting at a sophisticated system of identity and communication. More seals follow. Hundreds, each carved with precision, each unique in its symbols and images. Not long after, figurines emerge from the earth, tiny bulls, birds, and human forms shaped with loving detail. Some figurines depict women with elaborate hairstyles, perhaps representing ideals of beauty or fertility. Their faces, though worn by time, still carry a warmth that feels almost familiar. In another trench, workers uncover pottery, smooth, decorated with elegant patterns of lines and curves. Even after thousands of years, the clay retains a soft sheen, as though it remembers the hands that shaped it. And next to the pottery lies jewelry. Tiny beads of carnelian, agate, shell, and faience threaded together in necklaces that once adorned the people of this ancient world. Each object whispers a story. A necklace tells of a bead maker who polished stones until they gleamed like embers. A seal tells of a merchant marking his goods with pride before sending them along the river. A pottery jar tells of meals shared, water stored, and hands busy with daily tasks. A figurine tells of quiet beliefs held close within the home. Together, these artifacts form a mosaic of life, subtle, human, and profoundly real. As archaeologists uncover more of the city's structure, their admiration deepens. They find standardized bricks that suggest a system of measurement and shared values. They find drainage channels so advanced that they rival some modern systems. They discover wells built with such care that many still hold water today. All of this points to a civilization that valued practicality, cleanliness, and harmony. And though the mysteries remain, especially the undeciphered script, the discoveries reveal something unmistakable. The Indus Valley Civilization was among the most sophisticated and peaceful societies of the ancient world. Pause for a moment to imagine an archaeologist standing atop the ruins at dusk. The air is warm and still. The land stretches wide beneath a sky of deepening amber. He gazes across the remains of streets and homes, imagining them as they once were, filled with laughter, conversation, footsteps, and the soft hum of daily life. He senses the echo of clay being shaped on a potter's wheel. He envisions the glow of lamps in courtyards. He hears the gentle rhythm of water moving through drains. He pictures children racing through the streets at dusk, their laughter bouncing off sun-baked walls. These echoes do not fade easily. They linger in the bricks themselves, in the patterns carved into seals, in the pottery that has survived millennia. The Indus people may not have built towering monuments, but in their quiet designs, they left behind a legacy of balance, ingenuity, and calm. Years pass, and more discoveries are made. Harappa rises from the earth. Lothal's dockyard emerges, revealing the maritime heart of the civilization. Dolavira's water reservoirs astonish archaeologists with their engineering brilliance, demonstrating advanced knowledge of hydrology rarely seen in the ancient world. Each site adds a new dimension to the story. Each artifact fills in another thread of the tapestry. Each discovery deepens our understanding of a civilization defined by subtlety rather than spectacle. But above all, the echoes left in the clay remind us that this was a society rooted in everyday humanity. Families who cared for their homes, artisans who took pride in their craft, farmers who read the seasons, traders who travelled with courage, children who played with toys shaped by loving hands, councils who met not to wage war, but to maintain order for their community. In the modern world, where noise often overshadows quiet achievements, the Indus Valley stands as a gentle reminder of what people can build when they choose cooperation over conflict, cleanliness over chaos, and harmony over dominance. Now imagine a modern visitor walking through the ruins. The sun sets in soft hues of rose and amber. The ancient bricks glow warmly. The wind whispers across the foundations of long-gone homes. The visitor pauses, closes their eyes, and for a moment feels the presence of those who once lived there. Ordinary people, leading extraordinary lives in a civilization that thrived not through conquest, but through care. The visitor breathes deeply. sensing the weight of history and the lightness of memory woven together in the air. And in that breath lies the true echo of the Indus Valley. A civilization that lived gently, built wisely, and faded softly, leaving behind not destruction, but quiet wonder. Now, with the echoes humming gently beneath our feet, our story drifts toward its final chapter, a closing reflection that ties the ancient riverbanks to the quiet night in which we listen. The night settles slowly over the plains once more, laying a soft, silvery glow across the quiet ruins of Harappa and Mohenjodaro. The breezes that move through these ancient streets carry with them the faintest hints of memory, echoes of footsteps, whispers of laughter, the distant hum of riverboats drifting along waters now long changed. Time has washed gently over the Indus Valley, smoothing rough edges, softening walls, and letting the cities rest beneath its patient touch. But the river remembers. It remembers the hands that shaped clay vessels and placed them carefully in kilns. It remembers the oars that dipped into its surface in slow, steady rhythm, guiding boats between distant towns. It remembers the songs sung on its banks, the stories told beside evening fires, the offerings of grain and flowers cast into its peaceful flow. It remembers the children who played in its shallows, splashing and laughing in the warm sunlight. And it remembers the people, ordinary, extraordinary people, whose quiet brilliance shaped one of the earliest civilizations the world has ever known. Now, as we sit at the end of this long, gentle journey, the moon hangs high above the plains, illuminating the ancient bricks with soft, milky light. The silence feels comforting rather than empty, like the stillness that follows a deep breath. The Indus Valley Civilization may have faded from the world stage thousands of years ago, but its story lingers, woven into the earth, etched into seals, preserved in beads, and whispered in the shifting winds. Imagine standing on the riverbank at night, much as an ancient Harappan might have done. The constellations are bright above you. Their shapes have guided countless generations, though their meanings have shifted with time. The river glimmers faintly under the stars. Its flow is slower now, its path wider or shallower in places, but its spirit is unchanged. It remains a source of life, memory, and wonder. In this gentle, moonlit quiet, reflect on what the Indus people built, not in war or conquest, but in harmony. They built cities that breathed with order and cleanliness. They built homes filled with light, warmth, and laughter. They built workshops where hands shaped beauty from humble materials. They built trade routes that stretched across deserts, mountains, and seas. They built communities grounded in cooperation rather than hierarchy. They built a script that still glows with mystery. They built a way of life centered on balance between work and rest, home and city, nature and human purpose. Their achievements were not loud. They didn't erect towering monuments demanding attention. Instead, they left behind patterns, rhythms, and structures that speak softly of a society that understood the power of calm, thoughtful living. As the night deepens, the ruins seem to rise and fall like waves beneath the moonlight. In your mind's eye, imagine the city as it once was, alive with voices, children darting between courtyards, artisans shaping clay, boats gliding along the river, and families gathering under the warm glow of oil lamps. The cities do not feel abandoned, they feel remembered. Every excavated brick, every seal carried to a distant museum, every bead strung into a necklace thousands of years ago helps to rekindle that memory. Each object is a whisper. We were here. We lived. We built with care. We shaped our world with quiet hands. Now, breathe deeply, letting the stillness settle around you, the way dusk settles over the ancient plains. Feel the weight of time lighten. Feel the past and present sit gently beside one another. In this moment of calm reflection, you stand not as an observer looking into history, but as someone invited to rest in the quiet wisdom it offers. The river's voice becomes a soothing lullaby, a low, steady murmur like the sound of distant waves against a shore. It speaks with patience. It speaks without urgency. It speaks in the language of water and memory. All things change. All things flow. What is built with care never truly disappears. What is lived in harmony leaves a lasting echo, quiet but enduring. The Indus Valley Civilization reminds us that greatness does not always roar. Sometimes it hums softly through the centuries. Its cities may have emptied. Its script may remain undeciphered. Its people may have blended into new cultures and lands. But the essence of their world still lingers in the soil, the air, and the gentle architecture of memory. Imagine now the final moments before sleep. The river's song softens. The stars dim slightly, like lamps being lowered in distant windows. A warm breeze nudges the tall grasses along the banks, their tips swaying in slow, rhythmic patterns. The world feels safe, wrapped in night's embrace. Perhaps a small clay lamp flickers in your mind's eye. A lamp like those once placed in Harappan courtyards as families prepared for rest. Its flame dances steadily, neither too bright nor too dim. Its glow reminds you of continuity, of warmth passed from one generation to the next, of stories shared across thousands of years. Let that soft light guide you now. You have walked through their fields, wandered their streets, listened to their rivers, watched their cities rise, breathe, and gently fade. And now, as this long story finds its quiet close, the river whispers one final truth. Nothing beautiful is ever truly lost. It simply changes form, waiting to be rediscovered in another time. So rest now. Let the ancient winds of the Indus Valley carry you into peaceful dreaming. Let the stories of clay and water, of homes and hearths, of rivers and stars settle softly over your thoughts. May your night be calm. May your dreams be gentle. May your heart be light, like the boats that once drifted along the slow waters of the Indus long ago. And may you wake tomorrow with the same quiet strength that guided this ancient civilization. A strength rooted in balance, harmony, and hope. Sleep peacefully, traveler. The river remembers you too.